Yeah, can't be reached, it says.
It will be live in 10 seconds.
It's a problem of the site.
Randy and I are doing late.
And we're live.
We're live.
I'm alive.
Eating apples in public, but I'm so hungry.
We're live.
I'm good.
You can call it.
Okay, we're still kind of working on Randy getting logged on, but we will start. We are in the same room. So I will call this meeting to order, and everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I thought I was. So first order, approval of minutes. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the Board of Education minutes from 5/19/21. May I have a motion? So moved. Thank you, Diane, and a second. Thanks, Becky. Any discussion? Let's see, opposed? Any opposed? Any abstain? All those in favor, say aye. Thank you. Any agenda changes?
As long as you've downloaded the latest agenda, there's none.
Okay. Thanks,
Joanna?
Tina.
Joanna,
Yes,
just a note, you have me down for doing a presentation on the TC3 College Now. I can do that as part of my administrative report. You don't need to, I don't need to do two separate presentations. It's just all one.
okay, sounds great.
You okay?
Let's see, is there? Okay, administrators report. Okay, I see it, yes. Next page. Okay, so awards and recognitions, first of all. So A, we have an acceptance of resignation. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby accepts the resignation as presented. We have a motion. Thank you, Diane. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Judith. Any discussion? All those in favor or any abstain, sorry, and or opposed? No, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you.
Wait,
So
congratulations.
sorry.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Barbara, for being here.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you and congratulations. Thank you for your 13 years of service. We truly appreciate that. And then we will move to presentations.
So I'd like to welcome Paul White, who is here this evening to do a STEAM presentation for us.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, everybody. I don't have any students to like throw in front of me to protect me. So you have to listen to me. It won't be as exciting. So I have a presentation that I can show you, I think. Let's see how this works. Oh, there it is. Ooh, that's way too far. Hold on. It's going the wrong way. That's pretty awesome. All right. So the basis for the presentation is our Trumansburg STEAM pathways that the amazing group of people I work with came up with. It started probably in like January. We decided we needed to take all of our ideas and put them down into some sort of coherent document that was usable with the public and for yourselves to see what our plan was. So we have it. It can be shared with you, but I'm going to walk through it. And if you have, well, I'm not going to actually walk through the entire thing, but if you have any questions, this is what every speaker hopes happens, and you want to stop me, please feel free to stop me. But I'll just get started. So,
And Paul, just so
Yeah.
you know, last week I did, or last month I did introduce all of this to them too, just so you know.
all right, so I'm done.
No, you're not done.
All right. So we some of us have been working together for like 4 years, and you hired all of us, and we were super grateful, and you're super lucky. But our vision, which we've worked on for quite a while, is creation, learning, and joy. And if you want to ever talk about our vision, we can explain it to you, because we have taken it into our hearts. So we're now pushing it out to our students. So hopefully next year, when you come into our brand new STEAM spaces, you will be able to ask students like, hey, what's going on in this space? And they'll be like, oh, creation, learning, and joy, and they'll all be super happy and super stoked. And yeah, we'll be like really rolling. So we also created a mission, and our mission was to create a culture of learning. So like having an open, accepting community and having it filled with wonder and creation and play. And all that stuff sounds really easy, and sometimes it is, but the way we want to use play and wonder in our space is a lot of work for the adults, but it ends up being like really satisfying, well, for the adults and for the kids as well. So this is stuff we totally believe in. And when we struggle or we have questions, it's what we go back to help guide us as we move forward. In January, or maybe it was February, we decided we also need to have some pathways. We thought like we could say curriculum, and our group was like, I don't think we want to use that word. So we went with pathways, and we created 5 of them. The easiest one was ag, because Trumansburg already has local locavores, and they have their own farmers market, and we have farmers. So it seemed really simple. And it goes from the really simple, like permaculture, to biotechnology. And anything a student really wants to do, we can fit into agriculture. The next one was design and engineering, because the E in STEAM is engineering. We added design because we're pretty big on using the Stanford D-School design process. There's tons of information on how to use it. There's grad students at Stanford that can offer us support. So the Stanford D-School design is going to be our basis. And just like our vision, it's really simple. It's like 5 steps. At least the steps are simple. Entrepreneurship was one we did not put in originally. And then after our first meeting, where we kind of rumbled with each other, we went away, and I was like, I think we have to add entrepreneurship. And Justin in the elementary school was like, I don't think elementary school kids will understand entrepreneurship. So it was like, fine. Elementary school, it doesn't get covered. The middle school, it gets started. And then the high school, we're going to be really strong in it. Like 3 days later and a couple conversations, Justin decided, oh my gosh, my kids are going to do entrepreneurship, because of course kids can do anything we allow them to. So he was perfect. So now entrepreneurship is going to be through pre-K through 12 for sure. Our second last one was oh, you guys are all on my slide. Get off my slide. Technology systems. So everything you would think of in STEAM. So robotics, coding. We are going to keep woodworking, because for some of the projects kids are doing already, it's not like they need to do a huge woodworking project, but being able to use woodworking tools is super useful. So we're going to keep that there. And then the last one is media. And for our program, media is super, super, super important. It's like a main cog because our exit outcomes, one of our major outcomes is to use e-portfolios, and into portfolio work goes all sorts of expressions. So video, audio, podcasting, still images, and stuff we haven't even discovered yet. But it easily fits into media, so we're supporting the heck out of that. So those are our 5 pathways. Any questions? Or we'll just wait till the end. Awesome. In those pathways to help guide us, or to help guide the adults, and actually in the high school, my kids will look at the ISTE standards, but the ISTE standards are going to be the basis, because there's 7 standards. I have them here, and they're super simple. It's like it's 2 pages. Sorry, it's like that. 2 pages, and my kids have already looked at them, and they already are starting to understand them. So students will be picking their own standards to me. Like, I'm interested in that. I'm going to work towards that standard. When they finish that standard, they can jump to another one, and then the adults will be there to help guide them. We are learner driven, so it's all about student choice. There will be times when the adult has to take some control, but generally this year we've been pushing students choosing their own path, and it's been super simple. Well, no, it hasn't been super simple. It's been super exciting for me and students, and for Justin and Gail. So it's learner driven. We are also inquiry based, which is going to be simple, asking questions, finding their answers. Again, design thinking, I promise, I think that's the last time you'll see it, but design thinking is super important. And I will say that the little gray icon, the first thing is empathy. And this is the reason that we love the design thinking method, because the first step is for the consumer to share their vision with one of our students, and our students has to build a sense of empathy and understanding for that person. So as we talk about like SEL and as we talk about SEL, it's super helpful that kids start to understand what it takes to build empathy towards somebody they may not know at the offset of a project. And then finally is portfolio assessment. We are totally on board with assessing students with e-portfolios. I think the last time we were here, I think we were at like 198 portfolios. So we were almost at half the high school in 8th grade. Now the entire 8th grade has portfolios. I couldn't count the high school. So like they're slowly exploding. Oh, I have one story. I went to the middle school to watch students present their portfolios, and we were done, and Amy Dawson was like, "Oh, this is Paul, and he's the instigator of portfolios." And the one kid, his question was, "Can you share these with my 9th grade teachers so they can get to know me before I go to the high school?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, brilliant!" So the 9th grade team, I emailed them all, and I'm sure they were super happy. I sent them all the 8th grade portfolios. Hopefully some people immediately emailed me back and said, "Can you give me more information?" So hopefully we have a movement going. It seems like it, thanks to Amy Dawson. Cool. So how are we going to assess our students in STEAM? Here is our plan. We are going to use e-portfolios, and then we've identified some success skills. Now the document we have that we created, the learning pathways, that is year to year. So every year we improve it. So we can change our idea of success skills. Some people call them soft skills, but we think they're way too important to call them that. So portfolios, I only have 4 things that portfolios are that we're going to look at. Getting students to reflect on their work. They know how to reflect, but they're learning to reflect deeper. So there will be a reflection. We have decided to put a showcase portion in where they show their very best work, but that's not the only part of portfolios, because portfolios are also about showing your growth over time. So adding creativity. And for me, when I do my assessment, or I don't really assess portfolios, I get feedback. But when I give feedback, it's video, and I just walk them through and I give suggestions on how they may make their portfolio better. So there's creativity, and then finally just learning. And that's really where their growth is. I started here on this project and I ended up here. And I have multiple iterations of my work. So you can see how they improved, which is super helpful, because we have some students who have amazing portfolios, right? But they started at a really high level. And then we have some kids who start a little bit lower, but their growth is even greater because they had more room to go. But yeah, that whole idea. But it kind of evens the playing field, and they're not judged at a level where everyone's got to reach. So that's our idea with portfolios. Those 4 buttons in the bottom are examples of portfolios if you want to see them, but we can always come back to that. All right. And finally, the last one is success skills. So we talk about the 5 C's: communication, collaboration, curation, creativity, and change making. We also are going to do a lot of SEL work with our students. So it's crazy when that becomes your focus. And for me, I used to be an earth science teacher, and I was really driven by my exam and getting a good score. But the reactions I have, or relationships I have with students this year and the COVID year, are probably the strongest I've ever had. I'm super grateful for that. And then we're going to do a lot with cross-cultural work. So we are all about figuring a way to show some diversity in STEAM, which for our school is a little difficult right now because we're a pretty white school district. So we're going to be pulling people in to help with that. And just showing other cultures and building some acceptance and talking about it. So I think the team of people that I get to work with are really blessed with being they're super kind and thoughtful. So I think for us, there'll be days when we struggle as adults, but I think what we do with our students will be, I think will be pretty powerful. So, and then last, critical thinking, problem solving. We already have examples of that this year in what was a very interesting year. So those will be our success skills that we're looking at. And of course we have the portfolio, and we'll be able to see all those things in there. So, oh, that's an example of student work. So anyways, that is a really maybe brief learning pathways presentation. If you want to see, I can show you short student work or not. I will leave that up to you. I can't hear anyone if someone's talking.
Try again. Okay. Hi, sorry, you didn't hear me the first time. We were muted. If a student is interested, say a high school student, working on an e-portfolio, however, they're not in one of your classes, when would they work on these e-portfolios, and how might they access these tools, which are awesome?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. It was like I asked you, I fed that question to you, and you, so in the, oh my gosh. Well, so I won't go in a long story. I have a student right now who's going to college to take ceramics. And I was like, well, why didn't you take it at Trumansburg? And it was, my schedule didn't permit it, which is a totally reasonable excuse. So in STEAM, in the high school, our space will be open all the time, and I will be there as much as I can be, as long as I don't have a meeting. And students or your kids or adults can come in, and I will be there to help them. And eventually it'll be students there to help them. So if a kid wanted to come down, and this has already been happening, I can give you examples. But students come in and they just come in and say, hey, Paul, can I come in and hang out? It's like, sure, I got a class going on, but it's not really a class because the kids are working on their own projects. And we sit down and we work through some of their problems.
So like during advisory or during a study hall or after school hours would be the best time to.
Yeah, definitely. And there was, I have air conditioning in my room, kind of cool. First time in 20 years.
Right now.
Yeah, we're done.
I had a kid come in last week. I saw him in the bathroom. I was like, dude, you look hot, because he didn't have a shirt on because he was super sweaty. And I was like, I have air conditioning if you want to come to my room and chill. And he's like, I have a class. So I went back to my room. He shows up out of nowhere. He's like, yeah, I told my teacher I was going to come down here and work on my project. I'm like, awesome, let's see it. And we looked at it, and he had like a slide deck. And it was, contrasts were really funky and some of the settings were off. And we just sat there for 20 minutes and, worked on his slide deck. And when he left, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to be doing. Like, helping students and teachers just improve the product they currently have is one of the things we're going to do in the STEAM space, in the STEAM hubs. So, yeah.
Becky, just to add on to that, Paul's done a lot of PD with teachers as well around e-portfolios. So the e-portfolios he's created everyone has access to. So any teacher can utilize them as well that wants to.
Yeah, and Paul, I just really want to thank you and everyone involved in this fairly new work for our district. One, as everybody knows, including the community, we have these fantastic new spaces that folks will soon be moving into. But I know you mentioned Amy Dawson's class presentations, and I had the privilege of going there as well. And I think you can see the excitement as Paul speaks about this curriculum and the opportunities for adults and students. And that's exactly what I saw in Ms. Dawson's classroom. Keep in mind, she teaches math, and we were there for e-portfolios. And so those students had created time independent of their math work and worked with the adults, and the excitement from those presentations, it was just contagious. And that's what I see happening in these STEAM spaces. So talk about fortune and opportunity right here at Trumansburg. I could not be more excited by the people that are supporting these classrooms and the opportunities for our students. Home run, way to go.
Cool, thank you.
And during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's great. It's crazy.
Paul, I want to actually chime in and let me unmute. So
You can't unmute.
okay, I'm not muted. Or I'm unmuted. So you mentioned woodworking. I think it's really important that you have that component still in the curriculum. At what grade levels will that be available for students?
Paul, you're muted.
Paul, you're muted.
So much fun. So right now we have woodworking tools, right, fit in the middle school and the high school. So it'll be available. In the high school, there's definitely woodworking courses, but for me, an example would be, I had a digital media class and somebody wanted to make a light box and they made the frame out of wood, so there's a woodworking component, and that the whole class is down doing woodworking, working together. But I think the plan is, at least in the near future, to have courses that deal directly with woodworking.
I think it's important that students have the instruction of learning shop safety. These are life skills that when they actually learn how to respect power tools, you only have 10 of these. So being taught how to use them and respect them is a life skill. So I think it's great that you're keeping that, working that into the curriculum.
Yeah, and I think I think when students have a wood, like, I don't think we need to make Adirondack chairs to get to the wood safety. I think there's enough projects that kids are already interested in doing that require woodworking, which for me is like, all right, today class, we're gonna just go, walk through these tools and cut some stuff, because it's amazing to watch a 10th grader use a drill and a screw and be super timid, and for a lot of us, it's just like, oh, like it's super simple. So yeah, I think that's a component which will always be there. I just wonder if it's going to be like a year-long projects. I think it'll be, when we need it, we're going to use more woodworking, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So if nobody else has any other questions, we'll move on to our next presentation, which I have here as Habitat for Humanity tax exemption request.
So welcome. I believe we have Liz and Shannon from Habitat for Humanity to talk about a possible tax exemption on a local property.
Hi. Sorry,
Welcome.
second technology per usual. Yeah, so thanks for having us tonight. I'm happy to answer questions about what we're proposing to give people a little bit of background. Habitat for Humanity has 2 houses in the village of Trumansburg, and we also have a community land trust. And so, excuse me, what we're trying to do is put one of those properties into our trust. And to date, we've requested a tax exemption to go with that from Tompkins County and the town of Ulysses. And so now we're bringing it to the school board to request the school tax exemption. And essentially how that works is Habitat maintains ownership of the land and our buyer purchases the improvements upon it only, so the house itself. And it just makes it more affordable for them to own and purchase that property and to maintain it and pay for it in the long run. So we do have the tax exemption in place at the county level and the town. And so we're looking to also include the school taxes in that. I don't know what questions people have about how that works or, what the impact of that would be. But.
So I'll try to add a little bit to that. So essentially there's a property in the Trumansburg district that if you could attach numbers to it, Shannon, I think that would be helpful for people. So
Sure. So
that's the 200,000. What does that mean?
Yeah, the property is at 19 Salo Drive. The value or the resale value for us is about $100,000. We haven't specifically settled on that exact amount yet, but that's about the value of it. It's a 3-bedroom ranch style home, about 1,100 square feet. So that's the property itself. The lot is small. I think the lot's about 1/4 of an acre, just for size perspective. Yeah.
And then what does that mean? So when there's a tax exemption, if the school board approves that tax exemption, that means that that property would pay a lesser amount?
Right. So the school board would actually approve an exemption, not for this property specifically, but for any property in a community land trust. And so we're coming to the board with this because we have a specific property in mind in Trumansburg that we want to put into our trust that this would apply to, just to clarify how that piece works. And then when Habitat holds ownership of that land, the property is tax exempt. So that buyer would be paying taxes only on the value of their home, not the value of the home and the land altogether. So it's a reduced amount, but it's not a full exemption from school taxes. The properties that we have, so we have about we have 3, I guess, in our trust right now. We're adding a couple more later this year. It varies property to property what the reduction is. Like this house could, if it were land and the house all included together, say, maybe it would sell for like 150. And so when you factor in the exemption from the land trust, pulling the land out of it, you're taxing on a value of say 70 or 80 instead of 150. So there's still taxes being paid, but it's a lesser amount.
And then the taxes that are pulled out of that, the question may be to the school is how does the school then get those taxes? And correct me if I'm mistaken, that additional taxable amount would be spread across the entire tax base for other taxpayers to pick up. So it's not that the school would lose that revenue. It would still come in, but it would be attached to the remainder of the tax base throughout the school district.
You'd redistribute it essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I don't know of any properties that are $150,000 in Trumansburg Village these days. So I think that the property would have to be appraised differently based on comps in this market where things are very well priced. I just don't think that those numbers are accurate for this year.
And I know a question that has been raised to me, and again, I'm grateful for having you here this evening because you're able to speak to this issue much better than I am, is that if there's that larger housing project that is proposed for our district, this, and you said earlier, that tax exemption would apply to any property that's part of the land trust, correct?
That's true. Yeah. And so when we first approached like the village and talked about this a couple of years ago, that was a question at the same time. And they spoke with their attorney, and what they determined was that they could opt in to the tax exemption, which at the time is when we were interested in it. And then if they wanted to, they could actually opt back out of it. So it's kind of a point in time thing, right? So if right now the school opted in and then Habitat sold this property that was part of the land trust, that property would have the school tax exemption. And then I certainly can't speak on behalf of INHS or that larger housing project, but say that happened and the school district was not comfortable with the land trust exemption anymore, you could then opt out of the land trust exemption. So it's kind of like, you know, we have this window where we're interested in it now, but you could change your mind on it down the road if the situation was different. So we're talking a pretty small scale because Habitat just has 2 properties in the village and only one that we're even talking about, you know, tonight that we're interested in. But like you said, with that development, that would certainly be a much larger scale for that exemption. And it would affect, you know, those tax numbers in a much different way.
Yeah. And so if the board were to make a motion and opt into it for 1 or 2 properties now, and then months later, and the Ithaca Housing Authority has this much larger project, and the board at that time, because our board members change, say we're disinterested in this at this time, does the one that was currently put into play now for these 2 properties, that stays intact, and it would just be okay?
Did you get a response from the town of Ulysses already?
Yeah, the town of Ulysses has opted in to the exemption. Yep. So we have it at the county level and at the town level. Yep.
And do you know how, so we're part of an 8 catchment area of school districts, and of those school districts, do you know how many others have opted in, or maybe they Habitat does not have houses in all other 8?
Yeah, we don't have houses in all of them. We have them in Ithaca, and Ithaca City has opted in, but it's only Ithaca and Trumansburg right now where we have community land trust properties. So it's just the 2 districts at the moment.
I have a question. At what point after a family buys this home, will they then actually own the property, and when will they actually own the real estate? Or will the land always be in a land trust for Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah, good question. So it's a 99-year renewable lease that they're signing with Habitat, right? And so even down the road, that family chooses to sell that house, they're selling the property itself, even though, you know, the home itself and the land is still within that trust. So it's a deed restriction, essentially. So the family has every right and every ability to sell the house when they want to. They also, so Habitat houses also have some affordability restrictions on them. So Habitat sells to families whose household income is from 30 to 60% of area median income. And some of our grant funding requires that upon the resale of that home, it's going to a family that's at least 80% of AMI or below. So the idea there is that we're not just building one affordable house, we're going to keep that house affordable in perpetuity, right? So the next owner is going to be affordable and generations after that. So it's always going to be just a house being sold and Habitat maintaining ownership of that land beneath it, essentially.
And how much less expensive are these homes than other houses on the market that don't have these types of deed restrictions?
Well, we will sell a Habitat house, like I mentioned, this particular house happens to be a 3-bedroom ranch right in the village of Trumansburg, which will sell for less than $100,000, and the house is 5 years old. So Habitat sales are based on household income. So if that family can afford an $80,000 mortgage, Habitat's going to give them an $80,000 mortgage, and we're going to subsidize the rest, essentially, with a silent second forgivable mortgage. So it varies by owner to owner, by Habitat family to Habitat family, what their household can afford. But for us, that number is based on household affordability, not the market or, you know, all of the other variables that it could be based on right now. So that's how Habitat guarantees affordability, essentially.
And what happens if someone's financial situation changes and they get a very good job that pays them very well and that they exceed the income levels? Are they then forced to move?
No, they are not. We've had a couple of families who their situation has changed and they've chosen to sell their house, but they are not forced out of it. That mortgage stays the same. It's whatever their income and their affordability was like at the point of sale, the time of closing.
And then I have one last question. This particular property on Salo Drive, what is the current tax assessment that is being taxed on the tax rolls? Because it may already be very low, that it may just be this literally like a lateral move in tax revenue for the district if it already is lower, or was it, you said this is a new build 5 years old?
Right, so it's 5 years old. Yeah, this is a property that we're actually reselling. I don't know that off the top of my head. I might be able to find it real quick. Let's see. You might have to get back to you on it depending on how long you want to wait, but
Shannon, while you're looking that up,
yeah.
so the large housing project in Dryden, that is not a Habitat project or part of a land trust?
Right now, Habitat is building 3 homes on Slaterville Road it's the town of Dryden, but they're Ithaca schools. Those 3 are part of our land trust, yes.
Okay.
Or they will be when we sell them. So one's already sold and that one's already in the trust, and then we'll close on another one in a few months, and the third probably early next year. We also have a duplex in the city of Ithaca, and that is a part of the trust as well.
And so then I think the one question that hasn't been asked yet this evening is, what if the school board does not approve the tax exemption? Then what happens?
It just means that that house will be taxed at full value on school taxes, at least. So it already has the exemption at county and the town level. And so we'll just factor that in when we go to calculate the sales price and all of that for this particular family when they purchase the home later this year. So we have to factor in taxes and escrow and all of that before we set a sales price. And so that's why for us, it makes the difference, even though it might not seem like a lot, it might seem like a couple $100 when you're working with a family that's low on that income scale, that makes a bigger difference. So for us, we just like to know before we go into setting that sales price, you know, where exactly are all of those taxes going to fall? Are they at full value, or are they at, you know, 3/4 or half of that? I am not readily finding that assessed value, and I apologize, but I am happy to follow up with it if that's helpful.
I may have missed this, but did the village of Trumansburg accept this?
Yeah.
Yes, they did as well.
For village taxes.
Mhm.
Village. Also said the county accepted, right?
But
Yeah,
it's not
county,
the same.
town, and
Salo Drive
village,
is
right.
It's not in Tompkins?
It's in Tompkins.
Yeah.
Salo Drive is, so it's county, village, and school tax.
So Town of Ulysses, Village of
Village of
Trumansburg,
Trumansburg, Tompkins County.
Tompkins County.
Accepted.
But the school tax is about half that amount. Like all the village taxes is a very small amount of money. Usually the school taxes are the larger.
Right, the bigger
It's
chunk.
just
They make a
not-
bigger difference. Yes, yeah.
But then is this something that we have to decide today?
No, so I've been speaking with Habitat, Shannon and Liz, the last couple of months. And I asked them to come this evening to put it out there for board members. And then what we will do is we'll bring a motion forward at the next board meeting. And then in the interim, if you have questions, we can do follow-up questions and get answers and present them at the board meeting, at the next board meeting before there's a vote on that motion brought forward.
And we'll have 2 new trustees that should, if they have questions, they should ask them as well, since the new trustees will be voting.
Any other questions?
I just have one more, and maybe this was answered and maybe I just didn't understand it. So the assessed value is what is being taxed. So who determines the assessed value?
County.
The county will still determine the assessment?
Right, so we work with Jay Franklin and the county to determine a reduced assessed value. So what we typically do, so we know the full assessed value for the property. We typically reduce it by the value of some of the grant funding that's going in to make that house affordable. And then we work with Jay, you know, to settle on that mutual amount. So again, that's going to vary property to property, but ultimately the county has to approve that adjust assessment. Yeah.
Oh, they still have to approve it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that is for every assessment year that happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
So
We appreciate
much.
your time.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, so next I have the TC3 College Now program, and John is going to speak to that during his building, or during his administrator's report. So we will go to tennis team update with Eric Murphy and the tennis team.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Whoa.
Not for you, Eric. Yes, sir.
Yes, you can. Okay, thanks for letting me come on tonight. And in light of the very challenging year that we've had, I wanted to share some positive news about the tennis team. And this year we had 9 athletes. We had 1 senior, Macy Covert, 6 juniors, had Sebastian Cole, Jake Paradison, Jaden Everhart, Julia Wright, Lily Herman, and Ryan Petty. We had 1 sophomore, Drew Civiletto, and 1 freshman, Lydia Everhart. Our season went pretty well. We finished 4-2, and that was with a couple rainouts that we couldn't make up. But we ended the season on a very, very positive note, and that's really what I wanted to share with you tonight is the IAC tournament that we had a couple Mondays ago in North Valley. We finished 2nd, and we were a few points out of 1st place. And champions that day, it was first singles with Sebastian Cole. He won the IAC championship, and he finished the season at 9-0 and did not even drop a set during the whole year. Second singles was Jake Paradison, and he also finished the year 9-0 and did not drop a set also. third singles that day was Ryan Petty, who finished second, and he went into the tournament unseeded, so he was our Cinderella story for the day. Dwarf Singles was Drew Civiletto, who made it to the quarterfinals, his first year playing tennis, and he fought a hard-fought battle with someone who eventually ended up in the finals. And our doubles team finished third. That was Jaden Everhart and Julia Wright, who actually ended up having to go to a second day to Odessa to finish their match with Waverly. So that is, I wanted to share that with you because unfortunately the tennis team doesn't really get much publicity, but I'm trying to change that. And the best news about the tournament is all the ones that participated in it will be coming back next year. So we're really looking forward to next year. So thanks for letting me come on tonight. And it was basically their idea too, that they wanted me to come on and share with you how well they did. And I wanted to too.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very impressive.
I have some questions.
Really?
Shocking, I know.
Yes, it's not like someone on the board doesn't know one of my tennis players, but you know.
We hear about tennis courts.
I am. So first of all, thank you for your leadership over these past few years. I think the tennis team has been really kind of seeing a lot of growth over these past few years, and I think that's really, really great. And also, I think it's important to mention that I think also Brian Payne, this was his first year on the tennis team as well.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So our top three players. So let me just ask you, as from a coach's point of view, what would improvements on the tennis courts look like to you?
See, that's where I was trying to keep this very positive, and I wasn't going to mention the courts at all. But
sorry, I've been asking this question for a while, so I'm trying to see what your perspective is.
Yeah, the team was real troopers as far as dealing with the conditions that we were playing with, and it basically the courts need to be addressed very much so, and they pretty much have to be torn up and redone, because there was an earthquake on court 2. And so that got worse during the year. And we actually even played on that one. It was still very safe, but on court 4, there's a shaded area where I don't know if moisture got underneath in one of the service boxes. And if you bounce the ball on it, it bounces up about an inch off the ground. So there's a big dead spot. So, and Tim has been working really hard on getting estimates on exactly what we have to do to address that situation.
It's actually on the table as a contingency item as part of our capital work, which we'll know more about later this August. And so we're very hopeful that there is contingency money remaining, and we could in fact replace those courts, and they would be our last play field to be redone.
16 courts and lights would be really nice, but
how about 6 so you can play tournaments?
That might be a little bit more than what is remaining in that capital budget, but we'll see what we can
play tournaments. But also, I just want to say, it's true. I think that a lot of the other sports teams get a lot more recognition than some of the others. And even when some of our smaller teams see great success, the district doesn't often hear about it. So I thank you again for presenting this information, because it's always good to see our kids,
absolutely excel.
Yeah. And I am really just probably the luckiest coach there is in the world, because all the 9 athletes I had are just stupendous, very respectful, and just very hardworking. So I was pretty lucky.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So next is the wellness policy assessment with Rosemary Hanson.
Hi, everybody. Josh, I'm going to try to do this by myself. I shared something with Josh in case I couldn't share my screen, but I'm going to try it. Right now, I'm in the middle of working on the triennial wellness assessment, which is something we do every 3 years. the deadline's June 30th, which is unfortunate because I'm asking for people's help at a bad time, but people have been very friendly and helpful. I'm going to try sharing my screen now. Oh, I think I can do this. Okay. So I have this called something we have to do, but it's important. So even though this is a regulation, it's actually really worthwhile. And a lot of people are hesitant to get involved in this committee because I think it's been, people have viewed it as just something that had to be done, but it can be a really powerful tool if we want to put some time into it. The process I'm going through right now is invite all the stakeholders to participate. And we sent out an email inviting staff and parents to participate. I didn't get a lot of response, but I'm just moving forward with our process. We're using an assessment tool called WellSat through the Rudd Center, and it sort of takes you through the process of doing this assessment. One of the things that we did was sent out some interview questions to PE teachers and health teachers and the head of curriculum, and they've all responded to me. So we're going to be posting the results of their responses online. And in fact, all the work we're going to be doing will be posted on my website so that it can be shared with the whole community. The process we're at right now is with the interviews and going through the assessment tools. So I'm not quite finished with that yet, but I will be posting that online. And I've got a bunch of links if anybody wants to sort of follow along with me. And I'd also like to invite people again, if they're interested in participating, we can set up a meeting in the last weekend of June. So I have a link to our current policy, which seems to be something that was kind of standard and not really tailored to Trumansburg specifically. So while it followed the rule of the law, I don't see it as a outstanding policy. Let's just put it that way. Part of the assessment process is at the end, you compare it to a model wellness policy. And that's a process that I would love to get other people to engage in, but you can see what some other schools have done and how it can be a more powerful tool in terms of promoting wellness in our school. So basically the 6 areas that the wellness policy covers is our nutrition education, physical education and activity, standards for USDA meals, so that's the food service program, nutrition standards for competitive foods, which covers like parties and vending machines and things like that, wellness promotion and marketing, which is both, are we promoting healthy eating and are there corporations promoting unhealthy foods in our schools? And then implementation, evaluation, and communication. Are we doing a good job communicating our wellness policy, our wellness committee to the public? Here I've got some links to the model wellness policy that we're going to be using to compare our policy to, and then a couple other schools who have some great wellness policies that would be worthwhile to look at. I will be posting the results of the assessment in like a report form, plus all the materials that we use to assess. And then hopefully we could get a committee together to make some recommendations. And I'm including some resources here. They had a parent summary in Minneapolis that was just English language explanation of what was in the wellness policy. And to me, that would be a wonderful document to put together that wasn't in policy language, if you know what I mean, so that parents and the community could understand. I think that is it. Does anybody have any questions, or would anybody like to get involved in this wellness policy?
How many additional volunteers are you looking for?
Any. Right now, it's just me. I did have gym teachers respond to me. They want you to have a big giant committee, and I just feel like people are a little burned out on big giant committees right now. So I'd be happy to work sort of offline. You know, I don't think we all have to be in a room, and we can maybe work on things at our own pace. Really, only the assessment has to be done, and we can work on recommendations and really rewriting the policy after June 30th, if that works for people. But I'm sort of free that last week in June, so I'm happy to schedule time then if that works for anybody. Anyone can just email me if they're interested.
So Rose, I think we can support you in putting together more of a skeleton committee for the time being to get us through to that June 30th.
Sure.
Final timeline for you, and then definitely spend some time this summer in resurrecting this wellness committee and have a very robust, active wellness committee. Certainly following COVID and looking at the next school year ahead, wellness is at the front and center of what we'll be doing as well. So
I do want to also mention, we may want to consider social emotional wellness. I think that's become obviously an important issue, and we are doing some great things, and it's just very scattered. And so I feel like there's a lot of good news to report on things that we're doing as a community and as a school that people don't know about. And so I think this can also be a good process of organizing that and telling a better story, if you know what I mean.
questions for Rose?
Thank you so much, Rose.
Thanks. Let me know if you have any questions, just write me.
Thank you.
Sure will. So that's it for presentations. And next is correspondence. We received an email from a community member regarding the school business administrator position and the 0.5 FTE increase for a PE teacher. And then on to committee reports. And I think we've said that correspondence would be available on the website, right? And then the answers to that as well.
And I'm not sure that we have that completed at this point, but
okay. Thank you. Committee reports. So first up is policy committee, first reading and adoption of board policy for diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a policy that we discussed during committee a few times, didn't quite settle on any great language for our school or our schools. So we've had this policy for about a year. We found a policy that from New York State School Board Association as a recommendation. And the committee did work on this to tailor it to our school. Some of the things that I wanted to point out, and please feel free to help me out on this, Judith and Jane, who are also on the policy committee. So this goes with our goals that we set for this year, and it is a continuation to meet our own standards and our own goals. So the policy has different sections, the goals of the school district, accountability. So there is an accountability piece that will directly reflect in some of the measurements that the school will come up with throughout the current what is the current process that we're
The
going through?
strategic plan?
Thank you, strategic planning. And it also gives us an idea of things that different school representatives are responsible for. And part of that is the responsibility of the board, where we will be reviewing this policy on an annual basis to make sure that it is a direct reflection of our school. I do know that, and we did discuss this briefly, New York State School Education did address diversity, inclusion, and belonging in April, and did put it upon school boards and school districts to come up with their own plan. But I think Kimberly mentioned that BOCES, Erie One BOCES is coming up with a skeleton for school boards to accept.
Yeah, so I can add to that, Joanna. So this is the policy that's included this evening as a first read. We've changed some of the language to tailor it because it did come from New York State School Boards Association. So we've tailored that language to make it fit Trumansburg. And so tonight it's really in there as a first read for everyone to go away, read it, give it some more thought. And I hope that before the next board meeting, we will have the one that's generated by Erie One BOCES. And of course, that would be tailored specifically to school districts. So perhaps at the next board meeting, we may want to bring the two together and talk about if there's language in the Erie One BOCES that we prefer, or maybe we still want to move forward with this one as a second read with a few edits. But we're not adopting this as the final version this evening, but we felt that it was really important to get it in front of people, as it will be the framework for some of the work that we start doing even this summer and moving forward into the fall. But I do want to hold back a little bit and also wait for that Erie One BOCES because I believe that will have really great language for school districts as well. So I think we should consider them both and then move forward with the one that's best for our district, or mesh the two together and make it fit Trumansburg.
It makes sense. If Erie One BOCES does come up with something prior to the next meeting, it's definitely, we should put a committee meeting.
Yep, a policy committee. Yep.
Yeah. To review it and discuss it for the next one. We have discussed and looked at different policies in the last year. So I wouldn't really want to continue dragging it for the next best thing. But do you understand what I'm saying?
So you don't want to wait for that one? You'd rather adopt this one?
If the board is in agreement with waiting for one more month to see what Erie One, who does give us recommendation for our policies, then I am totally in agreement with that.
Can it be adopted and then modified? I read this one carefully. I think it sounds very much like
we could adopt this one, and then at our next policy committee meeting, if there's a new policy from Erie, we can look at that, and then we can always come back to this one.
That way also, as you said, it doesn't continue dragging, it's there, and then it just can be improved by adding more language.
Sure.
I just had some comment, and I don't know if it's right, but on the first page where it says generally accepted beliefs and agreements on the 4th line, I think it should say from students. It says the district also recognizes that students have been historically marginalized, and I think it will be some students. You fine?
The Board of Education is committed to creating and maintaining a positive and inclusive learning environment where all students, especially those currently and historically marginalized, feel safe.
No, where it says generally accepted beliefs and agreements,
Okay.
4 lines down. It says, however, the district also recognized that students have been historically marginalized. It should say some students.
Okay.
And then on page 3 at the beginning, it says separately, each building SDM. Do we wanna, is the first time that SDM comes, so do we wanna spell it out?
We can do that.
And I wonder, in the cross-reference, we have textbook selection and adoption, recruiting, professional development opportunities should also be related to discipline or not?
I couldn't say with certainty today because I haven't read that one. I read these.
Okay.
So,
I think that's one of the next ones that we should be revised.
Okay.
Based on the DI statement.
so how do you want, you could adopt this as amended this evening with the changes you mentioned, and then we can come back at a later time and include discipline?
If the board agrees, that will be my motion.
I would like to see something started and adopted and then amended according to recommendations in the future. I think that would be the best path forward.
So I will ask for a motion from the board to adopt this policy as amended. So moved. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Becky. Any abstain or opposed? And all those in favor?
So now we have something to move on and then amend it.
Thank you. Motion passed. Yes, motion has passed. On to Facilities Committee.
Joni, you were gonna say something.
Not right now.
She's happy.
I will. I'm happy and I'm very emotional, and I appreciate the board's support on the policy because we've worked on it very hard, and I know that the school is completely committed to in these changes and has shown the effort and the commitment for our teachers and our faculty. So I very much appreciate this. Facilities Committee, would anybody like to speak?
I'm here this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Just a quick update to this crazy and trying year. The elementary main office is moving along. They have saw cut the floor and are clearing it for power and water lines that'll be going in for the new main office. We are in the process of getting ready for a few more classroom moves this summer to keep the project moving along. They include third floor of the middle school science rooms, the student services in the middle school, the main office of the middle school, student services in the elementary school, the new RTI reading and math rooms in the elementary, and finally, the expansion of the weight room in the high school. And just final note, I'm looking forward to these kids coming back in the fall and the looks on their faces and, at the new spaces that they get to use for the future. So really excited. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So with that, we have administrators reports. So we have the school principals,
Do we want, let's start with the high school and work backwards. Or actually, let's start with the elementary school. Youngest to oldest.
That made me laugh. I was like, oh, she's going to start with me. And I'm like, oh, maybe not. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. We've had some really exciting days at the elementary school. We had field days today and tomorrow. So a lot of excited kids. The weather almost cooperated today. We got everyone through we lost a little bit at the end of kindergarten with rain, but other than that, it was a great day. Each of our grade levels are doing something special. Our pre-K classes went to Taganic Park last Friday and had a wonderful time, perfect weather. Our kindergarten classrooms have several fun days coming up. They have their graduation this Friday, and they have beach day coming up. Our first graders are having a beach party that involves making tie-dye shirts. So all the students will be making a tie-dye shirt. And of course, an ice cream party, because you can't have tie-dye without ice cream. Our second graders are having a teddy bear picnic. And this is an annual event for our second graders where they bring their favorite stuffed animal, and the stuffed animal gets to go to the picnic with them. And then they will have a lot of activities for them, including sprinklers and other things outside on the fields. Third grade is heading to Taganic tomorrow. So we're looking forward to a great day for them. And the seniors in our building, our fourth graders, will be having the success celebration on the last day of school. It will look a lot different than it has in the past, but it is going to be a lot of fun. Anyone who's coming can look forward to a drumming performance. We won't be singing or doing recorders, but we can drum. So wonderful. Just as far as kind of where we are academically, I've met with all but one classroom teacher so far in the last couple of weeks to do our data meetings. We looked at the progress of each student, looking at their assessments and where they're at. And I have to say we've had a huge amount of growth. I think we were all pleasantly surprised. I think because the class sizes were so small, we were able to really give some attention to students. And even though they may have come in a little behind, they made huge growth. So overall, we were very pleased. We also have determined the master schedule for next year. What's kind of funny about that is that our team that put it together 2 years ago, and now we can finally use it. We checked it again to make sure it would work, and it will. So we're excited about that. And the last thing is, while we are having all these fun events, we are also preparing to move. As Tim said, there are a lot of new spaces opening, but because we move so many people between spaces, we have to move people back into new spaces. So we have 24 classrooms moving this summer. So we are packing up classrooms, but everyone is very happy to have a successful end of the school year.
Thank you, Jeannie. I have to say that, all of this was all his first year in elementary. And even though during COVID, it's kind of difficult, but she loved school every single day. She got in the car and would say, "Mommy, school was great." Aww. And so I have to say that, she had a wonderful year. And then all she talked about today was a field day. So, and she's in kindergarten, so even though it was cut short, she did not notice, I don't think. So, fantastic. And, everything's been great this year.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you.
I have a question. I understand that it's on the second to the last day of school, the remote teachers are going to go around and pick up equipment, Chromebooks, and say their goodbyes to their students. But what are these remote kids going to do on the very last day of school if they are not connected?
Well, I think it's different for each grade level. So I think that remote teachers have worked with the families at each grade level to determine what would work best. So some are doing it on the 23rd, some are on the 24th. And really, it was an opportunity to see the children and say goodbye to them since they've been remote all year. So it's going to be a really special event for each of the remote teachers who are doing that. If a classroom is picking up their Chromebooks on the 23rd, then I have a feeling the teacher probably had something for them to do on the 24th.
Okay, and then you had mentioned second graders having a teddy bear picnic with sprinklers. So my question is, Mr. Naylor, are you going to be like, wet teddy bears, wet teddy bears? Wet teddy bears for second graders sounds really great.
Teddy bears won't be going into the sprinklers, just to clarify.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe Mr. Naylor can deem that part.
Way to set the adults straight, Jeannie.
Nicely done.
Thank you, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
And up next, we have Megan Conaway from our middle school.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone tonight. My goodness, I have to say I tend to try to keep my emotions in a box. And there's these funny things that keep happening at the end of the school year. We're just these moments of joy and celebration that all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think that's happening with a lot of us, where it's just been such an incredible year, and just to see the opportunities and the connections with our students. It's a pretty amazing experience. So we are definitely finishing the year strong. Lots of middle school care and excitement is happening. We just had a successful trip to Seabreeze for our 8th grade crew. Typically they go to Washington, DC, as we all know, but we incorporated some physics into this trip and made a one-day event happen. And watching the 8th grade students this past Friday when they came out to see the sort out buses and wearing their masks, but you could see the excitement for sure. We took 65 students of our 8th graders on that trip. We just concluded modified sports with softball, baseball, and track. And we had approximately 60 students that participated in those events. And I can't say I was so proud to see the coaches and the students and their involvement. And we had a very successful spring season. So I'm just going to talk a little about some of the different events that are happening. There's quite a bit for sure. So this past Friday, we had our 4th grade students had the opportunity to connect. We have our letter writing project, so a part of the transition from 4th to 5th grade. And we had some beautiful pictures this past Friday when the 4th graders came up to the middle school to meet their 5th grade buddy and then share their letter. And it was time for a Q&A and a quick tour. We showed them the newer part of the middle school that's not currently under construction. So that was exciting for our students. Our Social Justice Club, their latest project, they're creating informational pride posters to display in the hallways, as well as a short video to display in our morning announcements, which is awesome. This Wednesday, we have many 8th grade students are doing a PBL project in terms of their social studies and ELA projects with the book Stamped. So we have an equality fun walk run at the high school track from 5:30 to 7. We have 2 8th graders that have taken the lead and making that event happen. So it's fundraising in collaboration with our student council, and the funds will be going to the Southside Community Center located in Ithaca. And each grade level, we have field trips coming up. We have the floating classroom that's going to be happening with our 7th grade crew. Our 5th and 6th graders are going on their grade level field trips to Deganic, and the 6th graders are going to Watkins Glen. And then our 8th grade students, we're having an 8th grade moving up parade on the 24th, starting at 12:30. And that'll be an opportunity for the middle school, elementary, and for families to celebrate with the 8th grade students. So we have a lot of awesome things are happening. As I mentioned, it's just been such a reward. As you heard Tim and Jeannie talk about all of the major moves just in terms of construction, that alone would be a lot for anyone in a particular year. So I'm extremely proud, as you've heard me mention, of the students and all of the staff. And a shout out to Barb Elmore. I've only had the opportunity to work with her for 1 year, but she has been such a kind soul in our building, and I wish her the best. So thanks, everyone. Those are the updates at the middle school.
Thank you, Megan.
Sure.
Next, John.
My turn. So lots of celebrations, obviously, at the high school. Lots of things going on. My first couple of points I'm going to share are specific to some questions that Joanna had shared with us, or with Kimberly and I. So I want to just hit on some details. First off, our senior awards night was last Wednesday, June 9th, and we awarded 53 specific Trumansburg Community and School Awards that totaled roughly $60,000. And those ranged from some certificates to up to individual awards of up $8,000. So lots of money given out to our kids, and those are all awards that are specific to our Trumansburg community and our school. I get asked every year why we don't announce other awards. There's some specific awards that Joanna had asked about. And so I just want to clarify that our awards program, which on a normal year runs about 2.5 hours, only is about the local things that we control. We don't announce things like university scholarships because we have tons of kids that are getting huge merit-based scholarships from universities and colleges. We also have other scholarships that kids apply for outside of our community that are, and the one specifically that Johanna had asked about was the Latino Civic Association. And those kinds of things we don't typically announce at our senior awards because we don't know about them. We don't necessarily have a formal way to be notified of them. And so if you go back about 15 years ago, they used to include a lot of those things. And every year there were apparently, and this is all before my time, but they took those out because there was a lot of problems where we would announce one thing because a student had told somebody about it, but then 3 other families would be upset because we didn't announce the things that their kids got because we didn't know about them. So what we had made the decision to do years ago, and I say we before my time, but really we wanted to just focus our awards program on the things that we control and we know about. But that's one of the greatest problems to have in our school district is that our kids get tons and tons of awards. So for example, that one that Johanna had asked me about, we did have 2 students that won that award. They were notified, but we didn't know until one of the kids who I actually happened to write a letter of recommendation for came in and thanked me and shared that she had received the scholarship, and another student, her parent had called the counselor and happened to mention that she had gotten the scholarship. So we were super excited for them. But so those things are all happening. We have tons of kids getting merit-based scholarships from universities. There's tons and tons and tons of money. But if we incorporated all of that into our senior awards program, it would also go on about 4 or 5 hours, I would bet. So, so we just try to keep it restricted to the stuff that we control. So that's that. Let's see. So the other question you'd asked about was, what are our kids doing next year, is sort of the easy way to say that question. Right now, and this is, so our counselors do surveys with all of the seniors where it's their senior exit survey. And based on the ones that we've gotten responses from, which is not necessarily all of our kids, but we do know that now we have 72 kids graduating or scheduled to graduate on June 24th. But right now of that group, 38 are planning to attend a 4-year college or university. 16 are planning to attend a 2-year college. 2 are entering the military, and 1 who is doing an apprenticeship with a local pipe fitting union. And the rest are entering the workforce is the standard term.
How many were going to college, John?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How many were going to university or 4-year college?
38 are going to a 4-year university or college, 16 to a 2-year college.
All right, thank you.
In addition to those things that Johanna asked about, I wanted to also share, and this is what was in that other presentations, is the amount of college credit that our students are graduating with. And I had shared a graph with Tina to send to you guys. I'm not sure if everyone saw it yet, but if I could, let me try to see if I can share my screen.
It was linked to the presentation.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, here it is. I've got it. I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see that? So this is the last 10 years worth of college credit that our students have earned. And you can see how our program has grown. The thing that I'm probably most proud of is that first line, which isn't necessarily, a huge number of credits, but it's a huge number of kids. 96% of our kids that are graduating will graduate with at least some college credit. And that ranges for that 96% from 1 credit to 66 credits. The most, we had a student who I think, set the record for the most college credits in high school. We had a student that graduated with 66 credits this year. But the fact that all of our kids, nearly all of our kids, are going to graduate with some college credit before they go. And again, as a parent of a graduating senior, knowing that he's going to go off to college and is going to be able to exempt from a lot of his college requirements because he's already taken classes at high school that meet those requirements, allows my kid to take other classes related to his major, or to explore things that he has an interest in. And I know that that's an opportunity for all of our kids, that it allows them greater flexibility when they get off to college. And again, so just to give a little bit more detail, and you can see from the table and the chart that we had 56% of our kids that earned over 15 credits, which means a semester, at least a semester's worth of college. So more than half of our seniors are graduating with at least one semester of college credit. 35% are graduating with 30 college credits, which means an entire year of college already under their belt, technically, through this process. And then the only small number here is that the kids earning over 45 credits was down quite a bit this year to 4%. And I do think that some of that is related to the retirement of a very distinguished business teacher from our district, who I think offered 4 or 5 classes that all were college credit bearing classes. And so with a lot of the new staff coming on board, in some cases, those teachers have to teach for a year or two before TC3 will approve them to be a College Now instructor. So they need to have a little bit of experience. So I expect that in the next couple of years, we will be adding again back into our list of classes that are TC3 eligible or College Now credit eligible. So we'll see these numbers continue to rise, I believe, in the next couple of years. So that's the sort of celebration of what our seniors have done. It's an amazing group of kids. And so my transition to more of the celebration and festivity stuff, since I've got the control of the screen, I will also share this picture. This is from this past weekend, our senior trip. And again, I just want to thank our board and our community and the parents and the kids, because this was, I think for a lot of these kids, one of the most therapeutic experiences. This year's been so hard, and they've spent so much time behind a mask, and to be able to go outside, knowing that if you look at this group, every single kid except for 5 of them are fully vaccinated, and the 5 that aren't fully vaccinated tested clean before we left. So we were able to really spend the whole weekend without masks and just being kids again. And I say,
See your picture, John.
You
can't see it.
Yes.
Let me,
It's very descriptive.
okay, I might have to stop sharing and then reshare because it's okay, let me share again. Sorry. I went from the one to this one. Here we go. Share. There it is.
Not yet.
How's that? Can you see that now?
No. There.
Yay.
There it is. So this
And the disclosure again is that these kids have been vaccinated.
Yes.
And those that have not were tested. And
Yep.
so this is not to alarm our community. We were being
Yes.
safe.
It was just an awesome weekend for kids to be kids again. And I know that we talked about the success of the tennis team, but also that all of our spring sports were incredibly successful, because 4 of the kids in this picture got there late on Saturday. As a parent, dropped them off after they won the sectional championship in baseball. And I had the privilege of driving up 6 students from the track team who were participating in the senior showcase track meet, where we also won a number of first place and second place ribbons. So all of our sports teams had a huge success this past weekend and over the course of the spring season. And these kids had an amazing time just being kids again, and having fun and staying up late and playing games and running around and swimming and kayaking and all that. So thank you for allowing that to happen, and to our community and the parents for allowing this to happen, because it was so awesome for these kids. I don't think there's anybody in that picture that doesn't have a huge smile on their face. So all right, so I will start to wrap up my presentation here by just sharing that the remaining things for you all to know about. So our last day of classes is on Wednesday. But that doesn't mean that instruction is stopping on Wednesday. We have our Regents exams, but we also have tons of instruction and intervention going on between now and the 24th, and in some cases beyond the 24th, to get kids caught up with things that they missed over, this what has been a difficult year. And then moving forward, celebrations. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the stadium, we have our high school music concert. So if you can come out to see that, we are limited in terms of capacity, but I think there will be plenty of room for board members to come and enjoy that if you're able to. On Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, come on down to Main Street in the Village. Our senior class will be doing their parade up and down Main Street. That's happening at 7 o'clock with help and support from our local police and fire department. I really appreciate them chipping in. And then next week on June 22nd, we have the Trumansburg All Sports Booster Athletic Awards Program. That's scheduled for next Tuesday evening at the stadium. And I know more information will be coming up from the Booster Club about that in the next couple of days. And then finally, I have graduation scheduled on June 24th at 6:30 p.m. at Taconic Falls State Park. We do have a rain date of the 25th, just in case, but I put into our reservation that it needed to be 75 degrees and sunny, so we will not need to use the rain date. It's going to be absolutely perfect and beautiful, and a great opportunity for parents and families to come and see their kids graduate. So that's my spiel. Any questions?
Yes, I'm sorry to have to go back to the very, very beginning, but you mentioned these very wonderful statistics of our graduating seniors going off to college and some going to the military. Out of the percentage or the numbers that are going to the workforce, how many of them are BOCES career and tech students that are going into the workforce, into the fields that they have studied at BOCES?
That is a great question, and I would have to talk to our counseling team to know the answer to that. I don't have a specific list of the kids in front of me. I don't know who they are. I'm going off of just general data that I had the counselors provide me with from their survey. So I know the numbers of kids doing things, but I don't know. I can't track the back data to tell you that. But I certainly could look into that if you wanted to know more.
Because we do have quite a few seniors that do go to BOCES for career and tech education. So would maybe that number align perhaps somewhat with that number that we have going to the workforce?
Not
no way to
entirely,
know
because I'd have to look on a case by case. In truth, there's a lot of our kids that go to career and tech programs that still go on to a 4-year college and do, something completely different.
Get that information though.
Yeah, I can dig deeper into that if you're just curious what the outcomes are for our students that attend career and tech.
Yes, thank you.
I think, and the questions that I had emailed earlier were very specific to seniors, just because I really wanted to celebrate their successes and, whatever they go on to do after high school. But I think it's really great to show their achievements. Perhaps we could do it on an annual basis. Because, I mean, graduating high school is a big deal. And then, whatever they go on to do afterwards is as well. So, so thank you very much for providing those statistics. I want to say congratulations to the seniors graduating this year and moving forward in career or college or the military. Military is a career. So I really appreciate that.
Joanna, you'll have an opportunity next Thursday night to do that in person.
I know, I'm still writing my speech.
And John's writing his last one as principal.
It'll be eventful.
Yeah, if you're coming to graduation, plan to be there by 6 o'clock. And we will have special parking for those that are participating in the ceremony. So,
Ooh, VIP parking.
and including the graduates. The graduates are part of the VIP parking. So, yes.
That's right.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
And I just want to jump in with a couple of updates as well. I think it's important to say thank you to all of our unions. We have 3 unions at our district, and I'm super delighted to say that we have ratified all 3 contracts. However, at this point, I was not able to bring them to the board meeting this evening for approval by the board because we are waiting for that final editing of all the contracts. The page numbers are correct and the periods are in the right spots, but they are coming. So to this board, we may be calling a special meeting in order to approve those 3 contracts moving forward before July 1. So good news is they are all settled, and it was an excellent process with all 3 unions. So thank you. Next piece of business I have is our strategic planning. You've heard us mention that numerous times throughout this school year, and that has come to a conclusion. And unfortunately, I do not have a finished product. So we have a lot of good information from all the participants. And at this point, it still needs to be put together in a formal presentation. So I hope to work with the admin team starting in July and bring that information back to the board and some of the members that participated. So thank you for those of you that participated in that process. We're almost there. I do feel like we got a lot of good information out of that planning process, and it will help us lead the district into the future for the next 3 to 5 years. So stay tuned on that piece. Also, many of you are well aware the high school principal search process is well underway. I'm excited to announce that this Wednesday we will be closing that Google Doc for constituent groups to express their interest in participating in the interview process. And hopefully by the 17th or 18th, I'll be able to reach out to those individuals and let them know more details about what that process will look like. At this time, we have 4 candidates that will be interviewing with stakeholder groups on June 22nd. And it is my hope that we will have an appointment in place by August 15th for our high school. Next piece, capital construction. As Tim mentioned, it continues to move along. It has impacted almost every single person on our campus, students, families, teachers. And so I guess with saying that, I have to say, I could not be more proud of our district. We have been working incredibly hard since March of 2020 under this pandemic. And at the same time, the amount of work that we have accomplished during the pandemic is beyond impressive. And I think that when we all finally catch our breath on June 30th and look back, I'm not sure there will be a dry eye in the room. It is beyond impressive, the commitment of our staff, everyone on this campus that has contributed to student success. They've worked around capital projects. They've redesigned their instruction. They've made sure that students were taken care of social, emotional needs on top of their academic needs. They've supported families. Again, I don't have words to express how grateful I am. It really took a village, and we all did the work necessary, and we are almost there. And to the public that has been extremely kind and on occasion reached out to just say, way to go, I'm going to get emotional. It was awesome. So thank you. Because we don't always get that. And I have to say, the people that work here deserve it. They have worked incredibly hard for the entire community. Okay, and I'll pass it now.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thanks, Kimberly. Any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. We will move to our consent agenda. If you will, if anyone has any objection to my taking A through H, or if anyone wants to pull any out, I would like to take all of these with one vote. Yeah. Okay, so consent agenda. I would like to have items A through H. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. And second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any opposed or any discussion? I'm sorry. Abstain or opposed?
I have a question. I don't know if this. Were we hiring also a math teacher for middle school?
Oh, goodness. we are welcoming a whole cohort of new teachers.
But I didn't see the math teacher in this list. I know we talk about that.
It'll take me a second. I'll have to go to our new hire list.
Who were you looking for?
What's the question, Kimberly, in terms of middle school, our math hire for 7th grade?
Yes.
Yep, are we looking for the name of the person or the update with the
They're
position?
listed. It doesn't look like they're listed.
They were appointed at the last meeting.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
We had several at the last meeting.
I'm almost there.
Mr. Onwuka, the previous meeting.
So that was in May agenda?
May 19th.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
clarification. All right, all those in favor? So moved. On to new business. So these I cannot take all at once, right?
Right.
The 3 pages.
Joanna, you can take them in sections if you want.
Oh, fancy. Okay. Let's see. So A is memorandum of agreement, appointment, employee. Okay, so let's do A through C.
Can we do A through B? I think granting tenure deserves to have its own reading, so we can applaud that, please. So,
Okay, so A and B. A is authorization to sign a memorandum agreement with the Trumansburg Teachers Association. And B is a revised appointment for school business administrator. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Any discussion?
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
That's Judith. Any oppose or abstain?
And congratulations, John.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor?
Thank you very much.
So
So
now
moved.
congratulations.
She just wanted to be the first.
Pam, will you put your camera on?
You got a face that.
it's nice to see your face because we don't usually get to see the face when we get to do these special ones.
C, 10-year appointment for Pamela Raposa. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the 10-year appointment for Pamela Raposa effective July 1st, 2021 in the area of administration and pupil personnel services as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jane.
So deserved. Whew, what would we do without Pam? So Pam, congratulations.
We haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted.
Don't jinx it.
Any discussion?
So how long have you been in the district, Pam?
4
4
years.
years.
Yep. Any other questions or comments?
If you
Okay.
make it, congratulations.
Any opposed or abstain? No.
That's why you're
All
crossing
those
your
in
fingers.
favor?
Aye.
So moved. Congratulations, Pam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam, for leading us in this crazy last year and a half. We absolutely needed you every step of the way, and we couldn't have done it without your leadership. You are an invaluable resource for teachers and admin, and we always appreciate you. Truly, you've been out in front.
Thank you so much. I love this district. It's the best place on earth. It really is.
And she already has tenure. She didn't have to say that.
Thank
Now
you.
you're gonna get more work.
Congratulations.
So I would like to take items D, E, F, G, and H. May I have a motion to pass D through H?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Becky. Any discussion? Any opposed or abstained? All those in favor? Judith?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. So moved. So I and J, is that all right? Does anybody have any questions for I and J? The transfer of funds. So I would like to, a motion for I and J, authorization to transfer funds.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Can you explain this?
Which part?
So what is this? Vehicles that were not,
Hold on, did we get a second?
oh, sorry, who's second?
May I have a
I'll second
second?
and then I have a question.
Judith, okay.
And then discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, so are these vehicles that, I didn't understand this, that were not, the money was allocated to buy that and then they didn't get bought?
Are you, if
No,
I might,
so-
Kimberly,
It was just a question, no big deal.
Go ahead,
No.
Matthew.
we're just putting money into the reserve, Judith, for a later purchase.
For later, but why it says at 2017?
That's when that particular capital reserve was established, created by the board.
Oh, okay.
It's a 10-year capital reserve. So back in May of 2017, it was created. So 2017 through May of 27.
So does that make sense? So we create this separate account and it's a place to put fund balance. So
For
with the,
using for vehicles when needed?
so at the end of the school year, when we have made all of our purchases, there's typically money left over. And we're not allowed to just hold on to that, only 4%. So anything over the 4%, we can move to one of these reserves, which is really a special savings account. And so we've included language that allows us to add up to that amount to the vehicle and equipment reserve. And what that will mean is in the next fiscal or future fiscals, if we choose to buy a new bus or a vehicle, we would buy it with cash instead of borrowing. So it's a nice way to save. This is all taxpayer money, to take that money and continue to set it aside because we didn't need it this year. And then chip away at that expense. And then hopefully when we have to buy the bus for over 100,000, we don't have to borrow for it and pay interest.
And this is not what it got us in trouble in the past, this reserve money.
So predates Matthew and I, let's be clear about that. So the district did get in trouble at one point with the state comptroller for having too much money, but it was not yet in reserves. So the district was just holding on to it. And so you'll hear Matthew or I speak often about you're only allowed to have 4% that is unallocated. So 4% that's unspent, essentially, as a margin almost, I guess is how I would explain it. But years ago, when the district got in trouble, again, predates us, there was about $8 million.
Okay.
Too much. And then they would continue to go out and raise taxes and collect taxes when in fact there was $8 million sitting still available. So there wasn't a need to do that. So now each year we move a small amount of money into one of these savings accounts, so to speak, or reserves. And then we use that in future years when financially it's tighter and we need to offset an expense.
And that allows not to raise the taxes just because you have to purchase a bus or something.
That's correct. Or some years, we've always, for the most part, historically paid for our buses or the trucks that you see that have the Trumansburg logo on the side. We've paid for them with cash. Just like a good responsible homeowner, if you want to buy something, you should save up and pay for it versus borrowing. So that's what we try to do for the district as well. But
you wouldn't be able to do that in some cases if you hadn't saved, because otherwise it immediately hits the tax base and it costs the taxpayers money. So responsible planning.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mhm.
So all those in favor? So moved. So I'd like to take K and L, which K is approval to create labor per diem position by 2.0. Well, maybe this one by itself. 2.0 FTE, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the creation of 2.0 FTE per diem labor position effective July 2021 through August 2021. There are no benefits associated with this position, and an hourly rate will be applied accordingly to the terms provided in current support staff agreement. May I have a motion?
So
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
this is something we've done historically in the past, but maybe haven't done in the last year or two. Is that correct?
Correct, Randy.
Yeah.
Yep, the last 2 years, maybe, Kimberly?
Say that again, Matthew?
I think the last 2 years, we did not. My first year, that summer of 18, I think we did, but summer 19 and summer 20, we did not have this. But based on the capital project and just all the moving and miscellaneous.
Going on, any kind of help they can get is greatly.
Correct, correct.
It's necessary.
Great. Any oppose or abstain? All those in favor? Everyone, Becky stepped out of the room, Tina, so she did not vote for this one.
Thank you.
L, authorization to sign a support agreement with Matthew Fogarty. Be it resolved that the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby authorizes the superintendent of schools to sign a support agreement with Matthew Fogarty at a rate of $51.53 per hour for basic school business administrator support as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. How long is this agreement and is there a cap for the amount of hours?
There is.
in
There's a cap at 40 on it.
Okay.
And it's really just as needed. So it's very common practice. We did this when Matthew came on board with the person that was there before him. It's just nice to, as you're transitioning with a new person, there are things that come up. Obviously, I still know a lot about it, but I haven't touched it on a day-to-day basis like Matthew has. So there are some key pieces of information that I would like for him to be able to share with John when John needs to reach out to someone.
I believe we did that with Joe with building new grounds too.
Yes, we did. It's just a good practice. And we're grateful that Matthew's willing to do that for us.
I'll say thank you in advance.
Thank you all.
Any opposed, abstain? All those in favor? Aye. Becky's back. Tina. She voted.
I see her. Thank you.
And thanks, Matthew, for supporting continuing to support Trumansburg. So how much of this do I need to read?
Joanna, you don't have to read the whole thing. You can just look for a motion to approve State Environment Quality Review Act Secret Type 2 Storage Container Unit. You don't have to read the whole resolution.
There you go. What Tina said.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve Secret Type 2 storage container usage?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
And this is
Thanks.
just during the time that we still have construction.
So those storage trailers out there,
Yeah.
you're approving and you're saying that there is not a significant environmental impact by those sitting there.
Oh, okay.
And we need to file that with the state.
Okay.
Any
They're
other
not gonna
questions?
stay there forever.
No, they're not staying forever. We've
Yeah.
rented them.
It's for what we do have, not additional ones.
That
or
is
whatever.
correct.
There's nobody living in there.
No, not yet.
Nothing.
Josh spends a lot of time there, but not residency yet.
Okay, but we're not being taxed for that, are we?
Not yet.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All those in favor? So moved.
Nice, Jim. That's it. Out Jim's
I know
window.
in a place where they actually were
Right.
there for a few and became permanent and then became classrooms. So.
No, we've added square footage in our STEAM classrooms, so we won't have a need for these trailers.
So at this time, we will have open forum. We'd like to give our audience an opportunity to ask any questions about this agenda or about operations within the school district. Personnel matters will not be addressed in a public session. Comments may be recorded and responded to by the Board of Education or superintendent. We ask that you introduce yourself to the board, state if you are a district resident, and that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. So let me look here for participation. Anyone with their hand up? And no.
No, Dana. Dana has their hand up.
I didn't see it. Where's it? Oh, there we go. Okay, Dana, go ahead and.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you
Yeah, we
turn your
cannot see
camera
you
on?
though.
No, I know. I'm on my phone. I'm sorry, because I'm just going to be
Oh, okay.
audio. I apologize. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone, especially Megan and John and Jeannie for this school year. It's been really tough, and I'm so happy. What you guys shared today just sounds amazing. So congratulations and thank you for all your hard work. And I also wanted to piggyback on what Megan had to say about the fundraiser, the fun run that's being organized by the student council. I have emailed those young ladies that are in charge of that, and I plan on attending. And I was wondering if maybe the school board might want to walk together as a group as part of that event. I've heard all you have to do is show up, so I'll be there at 5:30 if anybody wants to walk. They did they're super, it's just a great fundraiser, and good for them to try and pull that off, 5 days before the end of the school year. And then I had one question of business, and I feel I don't really want to add business, but I did want to ask in case it's time sensitive. I know that Dr. Holly, the school district invested and did some PD with Dr. Holly this year. And I was wondering what the follow-up was going to be specific to the school board next year. I understand that he's able to work with school boards and will be doing some work locally to continue that culturally responsive trainings and teaching. And I was wondering if there had been any discussion about using his professional development at the school board level. So I'm gonna mute myself and just listen.
Okay. And so typically, Dana, we don't answer questions directly, but it's hard not to sometimes. So yes, of course, we are following up with Dr. Holly. Pam and I just had another conversation this morning about what our plans are for the summer in terms of professional development and what we will be doing this fall. So you will hear more from us this summer. We do not have all the details worked out at this time, but we are hopeful that we will actually have someone from Dr. Holly's group working directly with our staff. So more to come on that piece.
Yeah, Kimberly, you didn't know this because I got an email back today from Dr. Holly and I spoke with him directly. So we're going to schedule a time this summer to meet with him and
nice
next year. So
beautiful.
Would any of the school board members have an opportunity to also?
Yes, so Dana, last fall, all school members had the opportunity to participate with our staff, and it will be the same moving forward.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else?
All right, so at this time, I will ask for any board members. So right now it's board forum, so any board members have anything to say?
I have a bit of a report from BOCES.
Oh, okay.
You need to mute yourself.
This is, I'm sorry, this is the
BOCES.
school, the
School
school
board.
board. Okay.
School board
Thank
BOCES,
you.
yes, yes. The federal commission sent Ramesh Nagasarajan. That's the real pronunciation. I had to work at that. To talk about broadband policy across New York State. It was something that several of us on the board felt really needed to be addressed, and a couple of us really got together with several different advisory boards to talk about this. It was broken down into rural infrastructure, the problems with that, affordability gap, and a homework gap. Those were the three categories. In the homework gap, I'm just going to paraphrase, 1 in 3 homes don't have enough broadband internet. That affects 17 million students in New York State. It's a lot of kids. The affordability gap, more people who live in rural areas are unconnected because of cost. And there are 3 different possible ways to support that cost in rural areas. There's a $3.2 billion emergency funding for broadband, getemergencybroadcastban.org, and Lifeline, and I'm sure Josh knows all about those. One of the biggest issues identified is that this FCC has presumed that if one person in a local area can have broadband, that everyone in that local area could have broadband, and that's just not the case. So they're identifying how the measurements haven't been accurate. They think it's more than 17 million students don't have access to broadband. So there is money and there's people working on it. And this is really good news. Anyone in the community that wants to know more about it, Anna Kells, State Assemblyman, Kells at newyorkassembly.gov, welcomes your questions and we'll have time to answer through her staff. So that's where to get more information.
I attended that presentation. It was very good.
Assemblyperson Kellis is an alumnus of Shermansburg, and she just introduced a bill that was signed into law that will uphold children and their families from being sued by school districts for back unpaid school lunches or breakfast. So putting children first, which is really great. Nice to have local lawmakers make a difference statewide.
Thanks, Dan.
I would like to, I have a couple of things. You had mentioned that we're hoping that we could hire the new principal by the middle of August. Is it possible to already put a date in the calendar for an August meeting? Because we have one on the 31st before school starts. Would it be too much to ask to maybe have one maybe the 10th of August as well?
We can look at that. We'll see how much material we have for an August board meeting. A lot of times after the reorg, there's not much for us to process earlier on. Are you worried about the appointment?
Well, I'm worried about our vacation schedule, so you have a quorum to have people vote.
Okay. We can check with the new board at the reorg meeting to make sure that we'll have a quorum on that August. But I can appoint the new high school principal and then the board can act on it at a later date if you're not available.
Or you're not available. Another thing that I would like to bring up to the board is I noticed this past spring the use of our school's mascot and any type of representation of our school logo or brand had been used in some school board campaigning or some online posts. And I think that, well, I do know because I was on the committee and sat with John King when that was designed about 4 or 5 years ago, that our school brand is something to be protected and that people shouldn't be using it without permission or even making money from using the Blue Raider and selling merchandise, and also using our brand sort of looks like an endorsement. So I would like to present the idea of having a policy written that would protect our school brand and our mascot. So we have some rules that will be followed in the future. Yeah. And then
I think we can bring it to policy committee. You know, obviously it's the last meeting of the school year, but when we reorg, that'll be on the agenda for policy committee. And we can make that so by emailing the people that will be on policy committee.
And just having our brand consistency, our school names being correctly spelled and used in the correct context, and just to remind our community that they can't use it without permission. The school can.
So we don't currently have a policy for
I do
the
not
use
know off
of-
the top of my head.
Okay.
We don't have one specific to that item, but we do have some that skirt the issue.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
So I think a statement of gratitude to both Jane and Judith for being on the board and continually serving our community. We will miss you both. And I hope that you will continue to participate through one of our committees. You're both a wealth of information, especially Jane. Please don't leave us on policy. We need you.
It's true, we're both leaving.
But I'm deeply grateful for the work that you both contributed, and it's been a good ride.
Yeah, this was actually a great experience. I heard in the past that sometimes board meetings are very contentious. So this it's been very nice. Good. We don't always agree, but we never hit each other or insult each other or anything. So that was good. And sometimes disagreements are good. So, but I thought it was very professional. So I'm very glad, and I'm looking forward in the future rejoining. Great.
So I would also like to express my gratitude for Judith and Jane for this year. It's been fantastic. I always look for your input in board because you have a wealth of information, Jane. And Judith, has been great working with you this year. It's been super helpful with just moving forward with, a lot of our agenda items. So I really appreciate your time on the board, although it was very short. I also wanted to discuss one thing, and that is to bring awareness to something that is very near to me. Juneteenth is something that does not necessarily get a lot of recognition, but it's something that I have always celebrated coming from Texas. We celebrated it every year. For people that don't know what Juneteenth is, it is actually 2 years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. They were the last slaves to actually receive the news that they were no longer to be enslaved.
Well, they received the news, they just didn't disseminate it.
Correct. Correct. And that was,
Texas isn't
to their benefit. So this is me coming from a place that actually had 2 parades on Juneteenth every year, and still continues to have parades. It is a day of reflection and commemoration and education. And it has been that way since even as early as a year after 1865, when Black people would actually come together and celebrate their accomplishments in spite of barriers. And, you know, people still continue to acknowledge and support the Black community. And I still do during difficult, it's always been difficult times since then. And we continue to have difficult times with, you know, continued support. We make things better. We look to celebrate their people's strengths and spirits of the people that came before us, memorialize them by continuing their work. And I'd like to say that when you know better, you do better. So that is my my little, you know, awareness, creating awareness for our community.
Awesome.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, one last thing. I want to thank, you know, events like what was said earlier, the Equality Fun Run and walk-in for their continued support for Southside Community Center, which is June 16th, as said previously. And then also for the establishment of the 2 social clubs in the high school and in the middle school. And with that, if there is anything, or if there is not anything else, we can adjourn. Or do we have? Sorry, adjourn to executive session. And let me get here, matters relating to the dismissal of a particular person or persons. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second. Thank you.
And
All those in favor?
And will not be returning.
We will not be returning.
Who was the second motion?
The second was Randy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.